I was living closer to the city, I would upgrade my business and have access to a larger number of customers.
If I live close to the city, as an unemployed person, I'll be able to start pursuing business and then sell to tourists in town.
If I live closer to the city, that would be better for me because we've got no toilets, no water, no electricity.
If I live closer to the city, I would spend less time traveling to look for employment. I would feel more safer because security services and police stations are closer.
If I live closer to the city, my kids will stay closer to school. That means less time to travel to school. I would save more money on transport and travel.
I was living closer to the city, I would upgrade my business and have access to a larger number of customers.
If I live close to the city, as an unemployed person, I'll be able to start pursuing business and sell to tourists in town.
If I live closer to the city, that would be better for me because we've got no toilets, no water, no electricity.
If I live closer to the city, I would spend less time traveling to look for employment. I would feel more safer because security services and police stations are closer.
If I live closer to the city, my kids will stay closer to school. That means less time to travel to school. I will save more money on transport and travel.
The unique geographical advantages that the sites offer make them perfect for the development of affordable housing. Unlocking these well-located parcels of land will begin to address the legacy of apartheid's original planning, and also meaningfully address the housing crisis, as well as the deepening inequality that we see across the city. This military land cannot continue to be wasted, and releasing these sites for affordable housing will change lives.
straight. Is it on? Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Can we have those sitting at the back filling up the seats here in front, please? We're live streaming the event and we'd like to get everybody into the shot. So if you'd please just start moving or filling up the chairs. There are 3 chairs open here in the front. There's one here and there's one over there. We're trying to start maybe in the next 2 minutes. So we just give a few minutes for those at the back to take their seats, and then we'll start. Facebook, yes. All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for coming to our 4th Urban Forum. My name is Kirida. I am working for DAG, Development Action Group. And we would like to have Wilhelmina Trout, who is our board member, come and welcome you all. Wilhelmina?
Thank you, Curator. Good morning, everybody. My name is Wilhelmina Trout. I'm from Athlone. My background is a trade unionist, so I had to bite my tongue because for me, it's quite natural when I come up to a mic to address a group of people is to say Amandla. So that, you know, I come from a history of activism. I am on the board of DAG. I've been on the board for quite a while. As you all know, DAG is 35 years old, but I haven't been there that long. But I'm now the chair of the board of directors, I believe that all of you here have been through a program or workshop with DAG, so you know a bit about DAG. So the structure of DAG is that everybody else who's here working for DAG, but there is a board of directors, a group of people who volunteer to meet once, every three times a year. And our main responsibility is to ensure that there is money to run this organization. But my job here today is to welcome you all. So I welcome you to this very special dialogue. And I really want to say to all of you a huge thank you for taking your time, taking time off, and I see a lot of women here I know the responsibilities that you have, not that men do not have them, that you've made the time to come here. You are so important to DAG. DAG is in existence because of you. DAG is an organization that is people-centered. So you are the most important component in the organization. Before I go any further about that, there was one other task that I was given. And one of it is to tell you about the exciting change that has taken place in DAG over the past month or two, because it's almost November and this happened in September. And I'm sure it's not sort of new news for you, but in September, our director, who had been with us for 5 years, Adi Kumar, decided to step down. His mandate was up. And he decided it was time to hand over the baton. And so that left us with a huge vacancy, a job for the board of directors, because the board of directors is the one job that the post that they have to fill is that of the executive director. They're responsible for that. So there was a job for us to find a replacement for who was going to be leading DAG for the next few years. And we didn't just sit down and, you know, thumb suck. We came up with a plan of how we were going to do this. And to cut that long story, because it was a very long process, short, 2 new appointments were made in DAG. And I'm so happy to announce to you, and so sad that I cannot be saying these are the people. So as an apology also on their behalf, I'm here today to say that we have appointed our previous operationals director, Kathy Aranis, I think I'm saying it right, as our new executive director. And I know a lot of you are familiar with, you know, the work that Kathy has been doing in DAG. She's no stranger to grassroots activism. She's no stranger to the housing sector. She's no stranger to us in DAG. So Kathy Aranis has been appointed as our new executive director. And what we also made some changes was that we also created a new post of program director in DAG, somebody who would overlook the work, the projects of DAG. And we also made that an internal appointment. And so Helen, I'm sure you all are familiar with Helen. Is Helen's name Rook, huh? Is Rook, am I pronouncing it? You know, usually we just go on our first name. So Helen Rook, who was a manager, is now the program director. So we have these 2 powerful women, you know, at the helm of leading DAG, with women like Cureda and Crystal, Claudia, Kundaya, and Ryan, you guys are also included. We're not leaving you out of it, you know, honorary, yeah, no. Jokes aside, no. I think, you know, in this day and age that we have to amplify. We need to say that for an organization like DAG, 35 years, we've always had strong women in our organization, that now we are led once again by strong women, and that they have come from, you know, within the organization. That DAG has been an organization, a learning organization where people could, you know, have a career path. So unfortunately, both Kathy and Helen have actually, sadly, it's funerals that they have to attend to. So there's been a personal, you know, death in the family. So unfortunately and sadly, I know that their hearts are here, that they cannot be here today. But that was one of the tasks that I had today, and one of the reasons we wanted to meet with you, the important component of DAG, to tell you that these are the exciting things happening in DAG, that we have this new leadership. So let me come back to welcoming you and telling you how important you are to us. And as you know, that DAG is nothing without you, the people. And it's always been an organization, as I said, a learning organization for the people working there, but also at the same time it's been an organization that has empowered the community. We have armed you through the programs that we run, ensuring that you are, have that knowledge, that you have that ammunition, so that you as community leaders, as citizens of this country, can say that this is what we want. We need to have our voices heard. And it can't just be getting up and shouting, ja, ons wil die, nee, die moet reggemaak word. We are coming from a power of information that we have, the knowledge that we have, because that gives us a stronger voice, that gives us, makes our fight for us, it gives us more power. So today, I believe it's that dialogue. We all know that Monday is not only a public holiday, but it's a very important date in the calendar. We have fought for the vote. People have died fighting for the right to vote. I do not have to stand here and tell you about the history of how we come to be here today, that we can actually participate and say who we want to be sitting there. This is not going to solve the problems. We know that, Individuals, whether it's what political party, what independent, what friend, what gender, whoever it is, male, female, we know that that person that is going to be elected on Monday, who's going to be speaking on our behalf, must know that they have to be accountable to us. And that when they speak to us, they must know, julle kan nie kom met julle norms and say, we know the bylaws, we know the laws, because we have attended workshops with DAG who have empowered us, who have given us that knowledge. So today, as part of that process, we had hoped that at the end of this dialogue, when you leave here, that you have a better understanding of what the elections are about, that it doesn't only end on Monday, that it continues, that we have to keep people accountable, that we know the emotive issues that are on the table, and for DAG, housing and land is the issue, and that is why that's on top of the agenda here today, Land is such an important emotive demand. I mean, all over the world, people fight for the land, their right. How was this land then taken away from us? Who does this land belong to, And with that comes the housing demand, And for us, as we, in DAG, with you, together with you, we are fighting for affordable housing, not to be built miles and kilometers, away, where we want it to be on land that is accessible, So we know these demands, and we need to understand it, and we need to, when we question the people we're going to elect, they need to tell us how it's going to be done, what is their program. But finally, I just want to plead with you. I want to ask you that you do not stop holding these officials accountable. That you do not stop talking to your neighbor. That you do not stop as a community activist organizing in your community. Whether it's in groups of just coming together and drinking a cup of tea, but that you share this information, that you continue organizing amongst each other, that you continue supporting Development Action Group. Because one other thing that I want to share with you that's always asked to me by other people, DAG was established 35 years ago. How come you guys are still going? You're getting a lot of money, eh? No. There were times when we had no money, where the staff had to go without salary. It's not that we've always had money, but it's because DAG has always still been relevant. Relevant because housing and land is a question that we cannot deny, that it's still on the agenda. We have not reached the point where we can hang up our boots and say, DAG, we don't need you anymore. So we thank you for your support that you've been giving, DAG. We thank you for the faith that you've had in Ryan and Kureda and Crystal, you know. And we thank you for, you know, just having that leap of faith that you have in us. So I wish you good deliberations. I'm looking forward to participating with you in this. And finally, just to say on behalf of the board of directors of DAG, which are all people, you know, doing the work voluntary, I want to salute you and say that as you go into the, you know, the new era of elections, that you once again just do not forget about where we come from, who we are, and that you stand together, that you unite together, and never forget, don't allow those apartheid sentiments to come into our work. We must stand united, you know, whether we're living in Mitchell's Plain, whether we're living in Sea Point, whether we're living in Khayelitsha, we need to know that we need to stand united and that nothing is going to be done if we fragment it, that we need to always stand together. And that as an activist, I always learned, I always asked, why is it that we used to, when we, during the party days, when we fought apartheid, it was always the clenched fist. And somebody said to me that if you have your hand like this, you can so easily rip us apart. But if you have this fist, it is difficult to separate us. Don't allow people to separate us. Let us always stand united. So thank you so much for taking the time for coming. Thank you for listening to me, and thank you. I wish you good deliberations. Can I say Amandla? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wilhelmina. I certainly feel welcome. I hope all of you do too. What I want us to do now is to maybe get a sense of who we have in the room. Please do not get comfortable. This is not the kind of event where you have a range of speakers throwing information at you. This is a community event. So if we could maybe get a mic, please. What I'm suggesting is that we have just letting us know which organizations are in the room maybe. So if one person from a particular organization would maybe stand up and just say to us, this is who I am, this is my organization, and then we move on until we get a sense of who else is in the room. Can we maybe start with a volunteer and then move on from there? Kamo, please just raise your hand so that Kamo can see you. Maybe we can start at the back and work our way to the front, Kamo.
Okay, good day all. My name is Miki, my nickname in fact. I am coming from Nyanga, area called Nyanga. I'm coming from an organization called Bavumeleni Place of Hope, where we're working with boys from age 8 up to 12 years old. And then our belief is most of the organizations ignore boys from that age. We only focus on boys from age 12 upwards, where they start doing drugs, where they start joining gangsters. But in our organization, we're doing a prevention program where we teach them to have a choice to be on drugs, to be in gangsters. So we're running this prevention program in Nyanga with boys aged 8 to 12 years old. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Grace. May I just ask that we only state the name of the organization and the area, just in the interest of time, please. And next. Anybody else? In the front here, Kamo? Oh, sorry, let's go with that lady there.
Good day, everyone. My name is Sizi Wembakeleni. I'm from Khayelitsha Peace Building team at Khayelitsha Site C. Thank you.
Anyone else? Shall we move to the front here?
Sean Atcham, Mitchell's Plain Chamber of Commerce, better known as Plain Chamber of Commerce Cooperative.
Thank you. Come on at the back, there was a hand. Sorry, right behind you before you go to the back.
I'm Jennifer Visser, chairperson of the Easter River Backyarders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Cecilia Africa, East Ridge Subforum.
Hi, good morning, Vernon Fortune, Hyde Park Neighborhood Watch Chairperson.
Come on in front, yeah? And then the lady in the back of behind you.
Hi, good morning. I'm Soraya Peterson. I'm the founder of Concerned Parents of Bacon Valley. Hi, good morning. I'm Linda Jones, Muir Executive, as well as Aspire Community Development.
Good morning. My name is Ruth Elizabeth Peterson. I'm actively involved with Mura.
Good morning. My name is Arthur Pillay from Mura. I also represent the seniors.
Good morning. Alec Lawrence, I'm Mura.
Good morning, I'm Charmaine Adams, Subforum Chairperson, Tafelsig West, also Mura Exco.
Good morning, I'm Riva Fortune from the Hyde Park Subforum Chairperson.
Good morning, Andre Minto, representing Aboriginal Tribal Police.
Morning, everybody. I'm Dennis Abrams. I'm from the Subforum of Tafelsig West. Vice Chair.
Hello, Norman Yankees, Mitchell's Plain CPF and Mura. And when people say sub-forum, they actually mean the CPF sub-forum from a particular area of Mitchell's Plain.
Morning, everybody. My name is Daniel Lufa, and I'm joining from the planning program at UCT. Sure. Thanks, Kamal.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon, and I am from DAG.
Morning, everyone. Claudia, also from DAG.
Good morning, assalamu alaikum. My name is Ivan. I'm the chairperson of Tafelsig West Neighborhood Watch, and I'm also represent Cedar High School, Art and Culture. Thank you.
Good morning, Tanya Harris, East Ridge Neighborhood Watch.
Kijk, says goeiemorgen. Farouk Davids van the Aboriginal Indigenous People, the Kogakwakral of the Falls Bay area. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. I'm Willard from DAG. Thank you.
Good morning, all. I am Lungiswan Junje, representing Mandela Park Backyarders, but also part of Kailicha Human Settlements.
I'm Clive Bailey, the administrator for Mura, but I'm also the organization called WADE, Women and Youth Development, and my football club, Bale United.
Molweni banda kwethu. Igama lam ndinguViyani. The chairperson of Kailicha Peace Building Team. Thank you.
Leonard Jordan, Beacon Valley Secretary, Subforum, and the organization is Nehemiah Foundation.
Good morning, all. I'm Alice Bugan from East Ridge. I'm executive from East Ridge Neighborhood Watch.
Good morning all, I'm Elizabeth Zanzis. I'm the secretary of the Subforum of Eastridge.
Morning all, my name is Shirley, CPF Forum Chairperson, Tafelsig East.
Good morning, Jasmine Harris, CPF Treasurer, and also a Justice of the Peace for the Magisterial of Mitchell's Plain. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. I'm Zainab Jones. I'm from the organization Ithembalako. I'm also Commissioner of Oaths. Thank you.
Morning. I'm Andrea Couvert from the Woodstock Resident Association.
Good morning. Salam alaikum, Morweni. I'm Deirdre Peterson, DAG, Mura, and also the Neighborhood Watch Association of Mitchell's Plain.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Anna Baron from the Human Circle.
Right, is that everybody? Perfect. So now we all know each other in some way. I think one of the important things that Wilhelmina had pointed out is that one of the reasons we bring people from across the city together is so that organizations working on issues that affect one another in different ways can also discuss ways of collaborating and working together to address some of these issues. So I think it's great that we now all have a sense of who is in the room, who can we speak to about what, so that we can then later on think about working collaboratively with one another. So one thing I just want to do before we move on to our first presenter is maybe just talk a little bit about the Urban Dialogue series and the community dialogue and why we're here. So in 2020, DAG started the Urban Dialogue series. And the purpose of the series is to coordinate platforms where people affected by different issues in relation to land and housing, people working in the sector, people interested in the issue can come together and actually discuss how we address this issue, what are some of the challenges, and how we can work together. So we've had 3 forums up until this point. The first one was around well-located land or access to well-located land and housing, particularly in the context of COVID-19. The second urban forum was around evictions, and especially with the time of COVID, going through a number of land occupations and evictions as a result. We had that discussion. And the third one was around the government's intended program. It's not yet policy, but their intentions to prioritize rapid land release. Rapid land release would essentially then be where the state gives a site and service to individuals as opposed to a house or a top structure, which is normally the case, although there would still be instances where they would provide the top structure. So this brings us to this urban forum, which is the 4th one, where we want to discuss access to, where we want to discuss the release of public land. And that's particularly in the context of how political parties have electioneered around this issue, and also bearing in mind our historical work. Some of you would have attended the public meeting that we had much earlier this year. I think it was in June sometime, when we were talking about the release of public land so that it can be used for affordable housing. So this is where we're at today. I'm going to hand over to Crystal, who's going to talk us through some of these issues. And I'd like everybody to know that after Crystal's presentation, we're going to have a time of reflection. So we're going to hear from you what you think about some of these issues, and how we can work together to address some of these issues, or just what your thoughts are, and in fact what the priorities should be when it comes to land and housing. Without further ado, Crystal?
Morning, everyone. It's so good. I said that to people today. It's so good to see you in person. It's been a long time, and we see each other on screens all the time. So we had our masks held firmly, but we did hug. in some instances. So I'm going to be speaking about the local upcoming municipal elections and the release of well-located public land. But more importantly, my address is going to focus on what happens after the elections. So the elections, big hype, it's happening on Monday. But what happens after the 1st of November? And so I'm going to start off briefly looking at who DAG is. Fortunately, having listened to who's in the room, I know that the majority of you have engaged with DAG in one way or another. Then I'm going to briefly sketch a context that I think we're all familiar with, but just to frame the discussion in where we are at this point in time, and then to look specifically at what does this release of public land mean. So, as we know, DAG has been in existence since 1986. Wilhelmina described that for us. 35 years that this organization is in existence, and it was started by volunteers, professional, technical persons who saw the need to build the capacity of communities that were in dire need for support in their quest for the access to land and housing. And so we have a timeline, and I'm not going to go into the timeline in detail now, but I thought it important to show you that this organization is very grounded in what we're talking about today. We haven't started this discussion, the beginning of the year or in 2020 when we started with this dialogue series. In fact, this has been something that we've been focusing on for 35 years. And so DAG is very much centered, and our approach is very much centered in partnerships, where the community's voices are key and okay, that came out of left field. So, and certainly the emphasis for this organization is on people leading their own development. And very much as Wilhelmina says, DAG's role is to strengthen people's capacity. We all have capacity, right? We don't come in as an organization and we imagine that we have to start from scratch. We don't start. People are developing. Our role is to strengthen that process that's already in existence. And so how do we do that? We do that through sharing information. We do that through strengthening your knowledge so that you can start making informed decisions. So we don't say you have to decide this or that. What we simply do, and what I'm simply going to do today, is not go into too much technicalities, but I want us to start looking at some of the issues that I think are being withheld from the electorate in their decision making. So, so in terms of what the organization's core focus is, it's around strengthening the capacity of organized communities. It's on policy advocacy and the delivery of affordable housing. It's on the release of state land for social and affordable housing, our emphasis today. And then also very much on supporting networks and movements for collective action and for systemic change. So if we look at the context, we see that demand is high and delivery is slow, okay? And COVID hasn't done us any favors. COVID has wreaked havoc, and it really has highlighted the inequalities that are existing. And so I've just got some statistics that I thought will be useful. Just not that we don't know this, but I think it's important sometimes to remind ourselves around the reality that we're facing. So 5 years ago, we had about 2 protests a week. In 2018, we saw around 2 protests per day, showing dissatisfaction growing. In May of 2021, when the Minister, Lindiwe Sisulu, was still in the portfolio of Human Settlements Minister, her budget vote was 31.6 billion. And that has been a budget figure that has been declining year on year in terms of allocation for human settlements. What's the housing situation in South Africa? In that speech, Minister Sisulu said that since 1994, the South African government has provided in excess of 5 million housing opportunities. Very proud of the fact that the government has been able to do that. However, we see that this is a growing challenge. And despite all of those opportunities that have been created, we still have 2.2 million people on the backlog, excluding people that are not on government's waiting list. So these are people that's on the housing demand database that we know about, and that's 2.2 million. In the Western Cape, in 2019, the Western Cape recorded that they have more than 600,000, not individuals, but households, families that are in need of housing. And in the city of Cape Town alone, more than 350,000 families on that waiting list. Informal settlements have been growing. I don't have to speak about that too much because I think we see it. It's a daily reality. It's our lived experience. In 1993, what happened to my... Sorry. In 1993, we had around 300 informal settlements, and today we have about 2,700 informal settlements, and it's growing. We have approximately 2.2 million households living in those informal settlements. In South Africa, we have 258 municipalities, but according to the Auditor General, only about 30 of those municipalities contribute to 80% of the South African economy. And then COVID's impact cannot be underestimated. COVID, in a research study that was undertaken during wave 1, South Africans estimated job losses amounted to 3 million jobs lost and around 1.5 million employees laid off. It's a massive impact on people's livelihoods. It also translates, as you can well imagine, into the fact that we have seen people being evicted because they were unable to pay for their rental, and we've seen your informal settlements just absolutely growing during the COVID period. And right at the bottom, I have a little statistic or notation there that says 40 by 40 by 40. And this speaks to our transport crisis that we are facing in the urban areas. So Professor Verily from UCT speaks about people living in 40 square meter houses, 40 kilometers away from their places of work, okay, spending about 40% of their salary on traveling, on transport, okay? And so we know, and this is the purpose of our discussion today, we're talking about land release, and we're talking about the need for housing, and miraculously, there doesn't seem to be any disagreement between our political parties. Everybody agrees that that is a crisis and it needs to be addressed. However, when we look at the policies and we look at the frameworks and we look at the legal arena, we see that when decisions are being taken, it is being taken predominantly in favor of the 20% of tax-paying citizens. And so our policies and our legislation favors 20% of our population, whilst the 80% living in informality are not regarded as equal citizens. So let's talk about what we are discussing hear and the big hype and rhetoric that we hear in the media from all the political parties. So everybody is saying we are working towards achieving a spatially just, inclusive, and sustainable cities. Absolutely, that is what DAG is fighting for, that is what we're working towards. And this is not new. We've been saying this for many years, and in fact, last year, DAG, along with fellow organizations, community-based organizations, submitted, had a joint submission, a presidential submission, in which we identified three, what we identified as well-located pockets of land, state land, that we felt could really address this housing backlog and challenge that we are facing. And so this submission was around the three land parcels, namely Eysterplaat, Wingfield, and Youngsfield, and we felt that this could really address the problem of Cape Town's housing crisis. So it's not new, but all of a sudden, what do we see? Apparently, we see that land release apparently seems to be the silver bullet. Everybody is speaking only about land release. If politicians speak, they speak about we need to release the land. Nobody is understanding or discussing or telling the electorate that the land release is a critical component, but it is one component of achieving these just, sustainable cities that we're referring to. And so let us as electorate not be blinded by what people are telling us to stir our emotions. Let us start thinking a little bit critically around what's going to happen after the 1st of November, right? Because land release is important, it's critical, but it's the first step. So we are saying, if it was the silver bullet that everybody's talking about, then why hasn't it been released? Why haven't these land pockets been released? Why is it such an emotive issue? Why are we struggling for decades? And DAG is saying there are many, many blockages and factors that impact and hinder the release of public land. And those include, and I've just got a whole shopping list here for you, but I want you to not necessarily delve into the specifics, but understand that we are speaking about a process. When Curida and I were chatting in preparation for today, I said to her, and those of you who have been in my training would know I love to use examples. And I was trying to say to her, I'm trying to make this work in my head, because I need to stand in front of people tomorrow and I must make sure that they understand it. And how is this working for me in my head? So I was thinking about, marriage. See, I can't talk too much about marriage because there's no ring here. But I was saying, when people meet, right? When they meet, you need to identify what's going to be attractive for you in somebody else, right? So there's that first stage. Now there's that first stage, and then finally you pluck up the courage and you go on your first date, etc. And all of a sudden the two of you are now on Facebook. You are a couple, or what do they call it on Facebook? You are in a relationship. Okay. That is not the end of the process. Right? That only signals the beginning of the process. So this is also how I'm trying us to understand this whole land release, land reform, land management process is an extended process, right? So we're talking about a number of steps that you have to go through before you can actually tie the knot and start your family. There is family politics, right? There's financial politics that you have to take into account. So we're talking in this context of land and urban land reform. We're saying there's the legal and the policy framework. There's market-related pricing that impacts on the cost of the land. We're talking about the municipality's ability to identify and the management of their pockets of land. Municipalities, right? And then, did you know, I didn't know, so I'm not a technical person, Ryan's a technical person. I didn't know when we spoke about state land, we're actually referring to only national government and provincial government's land. Never knew that, I discovered that recently. So municipal land is not referred to as public land, okay? So this is why there's a differentiation. So there's the identification then also of state and non-core state-owned enterprises land. There are difficulties around negotiating that land. Extremely weak. If ever you have tried to work in some municipalities, you will find it's very difficult because there's very weak intergovernmental relations. One of the critical things we've identified is that there is a lack of a clear and a long-term plan and strategy detailing government's intention. So if government says they do have this detailed plan and strategy and they've identified the land, were communities involved in that process? Okay, because if they were involved, then they would know that there's a process. But we don't know, hence we were not involved. Our existing instruments, when we talk about instruments, the laws and policies at the moment that govern land reform and land management, and that regulate land release, are they effective enough or are they too blunt? Are there sufficient financing available to urban land reform processes, and are the right entities or individuals, are they partners in pushing the urban land reform agenda? Okay, and we're talking partners. We're not talking, we're talking people that want to work together, to collaborate. So why are we saying this? Because DAG says streamlined and developmental land release processes must include a range of human settlement approaches, okay? It can't be a one-size-fits-all. It needs to be incremental. It needs to have opportunities for self-build. It needs to take into account appropriate densities in that instance. It needs to, there needs to be provision for public, social facilities and spaces. There must be a mix of land uses, and rapidly releasing public land for purposes of affordable housing is critical to creating an urban environment that allows for the creation of inclusive, integrated, and vibrant neighborhoods. Why is it important that we put this on the screen? Because the urgent need for governments to release public land for affordable housing is not only about releasing land. It is about well-located land with good access to transport, to services, and jobs. And this must be prioritized for land release. Why? Because where people live matters. So government has this policy, draft policy, that they have talking about how they're going to look at land release. And it's something that's been put together. It's called the Land Assembly Draft Policy. And so what is land assembly? Now we're coming to the nitty-gritty, right? We've identified, we spoke about identifying and releasing. Remember, that's the phase one. There's then identifying, acquiring, cadastral preparation. What's cadastral preparation? I don't like it when people sit and look at me and I use foreign language. and I want to make sure that people understand what's these big words. Cadastral preparation. Ryan. Great. See, simple answers for big words. I just want to make sure we all understand. So we're talking about cadastral maps. So what's the property? What's the size? What's the ownership? What's the use of that land? So talking of the proclamation necessary for housing development at a range of scales. We're talking about different delivery interventions. We're talking about different actors inside and outside of the formal legal process. So again, Curita and I were debating how detailed should we go into this, because we can go. We talk about, remember I spoke about this 20% of the market that's being catered for, right? But we have this huge informality where people actually have a perception that they are landowners or that they are owners. When we work in our informal settlements, we have what we call, when we do enumeration, people can answer whether they are owners or tenants, right? And so people speak about owning the structure. But we know that none of them actually really own the land that they're on, right? So there's a whole discussion around tenure and tenure security and that whole continuum of tenure security. And all of this needs to be factored into this land assembly policy, because we're speaking about a varied number of delivery mechanisms and delivery methods. So what do some of those look like? So these delivery methods related in the land assembly process can include greenfields development. So there you see a picture of a project that DAG was involved in Kailicha. And when you look at all the processes that need to be followed within this land assembly process, looks at land acquisition, planning approvals and layout, township establishment, etc. Then you have a different delivery method that deals with brownfields development and infill. The picture I have there is of the Woodstock Hospital, or better known as Sissigul House, okay? And this speaks about conversion or redevelopment of existing properties on land or the use of that land. You also have a delivery method that focuses on densification in existing communities. So the picture that I have there is of the Netrich housing project, which was an infill project in Bonteheuwel, at the back of Bonteheuwel, very well known as Kreefgat, okay? And this also has its own processes that will speak to that kind of delivery method. And then informal settlements, which speaks around a range of issues that starts with land occupation. Then it looks at municipal recognition. People first need to be recognized by the administration, the municipality, before it then moves. So there's the customary rules. So people living in formal settlements, they have their own rules. They know who arrived first. They know what is allowed and not allowed. Those are the rules they make. But then there needs to be administrative recognition. That's when the municipality recognizes them by giving them shared basic services, numbers on their structures to say, okay, we recognize that you live here and you have been included in shared services. And then there's the legal recognition that follows, okay? So, we've spoken about land identification and acquisition, saying that that simply is step one. Step one is this land audit, okay? Step one entails a range of different legislative requirements, compliance requirements. It goes into land acquisition, which I'll speak to a little bit now, and then we have land to project preparation. So project preparation talks about the land readiness for development, and that includes all of the feasibility assessments that have to be done, the environmental records of decisions that have to be submitted, planning approvals, township establishment, perhaps rezoning. And only then do we get to the actual built environment. Okay? Then we get to project designs and municipal improvements. Then we get to funding approvals and project agreements, provision of bulk infrastructure. That's critical. We're seeing so many townships at the moment. You go on social media, all you're seeing is flowing sewage. We're seeing that our communities cannot handle because they are not being prepared for the volume of people utilizing the services. And after all of that processes, we get to top structure construction. So what we're saying as DAG is it's critical that as the electorate, we don't sit back and think, oh, this is overwhelming, you know? We have to find our space. We have to find the parts within this process where we actually have influence. And it's limited, people, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's very few and far between. But the problem is even those few and far between moments, we don't step into that space. And so it's really important, land identification. I know Mura is currently involved in the land identification process. This really is one of the only areas that the community can actually get involved in this process, is identifying the pockets of land and what it is earmarked for. What is it going to be pipelined for? What's going to happen on that pocket of land? And who's going to benefit? So identification of land must be found in your IDP, okay? It has to be expressed in your spatial development framework. And we find that when they have IDP meetings, we don't attend. Okay? We think, that's not for me. When they're discussing our SDFs, our special development plans, no, I'm not going, technical stuff. This is where we need to put away those ideas that these things are technical and beyond, beyond my understanding. We have to insist that they translate it into a manner that makes it understandable so that we can engage. And this is part of DAG's role. So I spoke about the presidential submission that DAG did last year. And I know, and I'm coming to the end of my input, and I know the rhetoric currently between political parties is around this land release and whose fault is it and what's going to happen after, and we are not going to release land unless they release land first. And it wasn't our fault. And if you understand that how public land is released, first, yes, so we're talking about public works. So the land is vested, and the Department of Public Works is the custodian of all land other than land that is under tribal authority. Okay, so I'm speaking now specifically about land that is under the custodianship of the Department of Public Works. So the Department of Public Works, yes, they're the custodians, but there are different user departments that own pockets of land. So let's use the current debate that's happening in the media. So there's this whole debate about those 3 pockets of land, military land that has been identified, and the Minister of Public Works is saying, yes, they needed to speak to the end user. The department that's using that is Department of Defense. So they've gone to Wingfield, and they've started engagements with the Department of Defense because the Department of Defense has to say, we are not using all of this land. This is land that you can utilize, right? Then there's a process where that Department of Defense has to approve the alienation. So they have to approve that we agree, Public Works, you can take this part of land, right? People, we are only just there. We've not moved a step further, okay? The land then has to, the application for that land vesting has to go to the provincial spatial land, spatial land disposal committee, okay? That application and that committee has to first approve it. Then it has to go to the Minister of Rural Development. Thank you. See, I'm not this technical person. My colleagues help me all the time. So it has to go to that minister for approval. Then that minister's approval will result in compliance documentation and certificates that have to be issued. Then they can agree that the sale will eventually occur, and that agreement of sale then happens, and now it gets lodged with the deeds office, and they have to go through this conveyancing, this whole deeds preparation and registration. So if a politician is telling you that the silver bullet is the release of land, they're lying, okay? We are saying, what are you going to think about when you're engaging your political parties and when you're engaging your councillors, okay? So all three spheres of government own land. We are saying, perhaps the question is, in your mind, which of the three spheres of government should have the main responsibility for releasing public land for affordable housing, right? Something you need to think about. Because people are playing the blame game and throwing the responsibility. Where are you saying should the responsibility lay? What are the practical measures that political parties intend to take to double or to triple the already dwindling annual number of housing units being delivered? What are they going to do? The moment they're just saying, yes, we're going to release the land. What are they actually going to do? Prior to COVID, the city of Cape Town had about 8,000 units annually that they were producing in terms of top structures. During COVID, around 4,000, okay? If we look at the backlog, remember at the beginning I said the city of Cape Town's backlog is in excess of 365,000 households. They're delivering 4,000 at the moment per year. You're going to wait at least 70 to 80 years to deal with the existing backlog, never mind new growth that happens, okay? How do these political parties intend to mitigate the current budgetary cuts that they've seen, okay? Because it's a reality. And if you are saying that we're going to provide housing, then tell us how. How are you going to deal with the lack of money? What will be the parties' preferred or targeted housing typologies? Okay? Let's hear if they are speaking the truth, because we also know that from national government, the directive is very strongly in favor of the rapid land release, much reduced housing top structures, okay, and the focus being on site and service, on social housing, affordable rental housing, etc. So if we're talking top structures, if we're talking about an electorate that think we're all going to get our 40 square meter house on our plot, okay, and I'm going to be able to hang my washing right around, and I can close my front gate, we are being fooled, okay? And in informal settlements, did you know that you don't have to think, oh, all these things are so overwhelming that, you know, nobody can solve it. No, there's little things that can be solved. In the first 100 days after the 1st of November, let's find out what these parties and councillors, politicians intend to do. What are the things that they can do? So, at the moment, DAG's involved, and we're managing a campaign in informal settlements called Asavikilani. This month's release, people were saying they are scared. Imagine being scared to use the toilet, okay? They're scared because they fear to be assaulted on their way because it's dark at night. Okay, the toilets are broken. People are scared. It's unhygienic. So put in adequate public lighting. Okay, make sure that the service providers that you are appointing are actually doing the repairs and maintenance that they're supposed to be doing. Monitor the work of those janitors and those service providers, so that you can ensure that people that are still today, in this day and age, using chemical toilets, that at least those are drained on a consistent basis. So we're not saying it's all doom and gloom and out of people's hands. We are saying that there are things that can be tackled, but as an informed citizen, I need to start asking questions that is going to indicate whether this party that is representing me and this politician that's representing me is thinking clearly. So with that, those few thoughts, I want to thank you for listening, and we will provide an opportunity for questions of clarity, comments. Thanks.
Thanks, Crystal. That was very insightful, and I think a lot of information. But like we said before, when we come to these places, we don't just come to listen. We want to listen to other people speak. We want to hear from everybody in the room. So I'm going to give about 20 minutes, and I'm going to ask those who have contributions to please keep it as short and to the point as possible, so that we can have as many people in the room given a chance to share their reflections. I think maybe what we should start with is just questions of clarity for Crystal. And then afterwards, let's just talk about Crystal's presentation and the information that we received, and what are your thoughts on some of these things? Yeah, so questions for clarity, do we have any of those? Anything that was maybe unclear or that you want Crystal to talk about a little bit more? None? Okay. So then I think let's start with some reflections. Can we take maybe about 3 hands and then we do another round? There's a gentleman here in front. Can I have 2 more hands? There's a gentleman here in front, and anybody else want to start us off? And there's a gentleman there, and hopefully in the next round we'll have the ladies also speaking up. So, let's start over here with this gentleman.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Michael Jacobs from Mura. I hope JP is not going to make a video and post it somewhere on his Facebook. Now, when one looks at Mitchell's Plain in particular, because we're from Mitchell's Plain, then you will find single plots, the housing. And that will never be a dream anymore in Mitchell's Plain or in the city of Cape Town. There's not really enough land parcels within Mitchell's Plain to have that single plots. So we need to think out of the box. But Mitchell's Plain is also a dormitory town in the old land which hulle staan en gemaak. Julle sê slawe moet uitgaan vir cheap labor. That is the reality. So we cannot think about Mitchell's Plain and just building infill housing and housing. There's already 3 on the Highlands corridor. There's preparations for 3 housing sites. Not going to deliver more than 3,000. The Beacon Valley is being stalled because of extortion, attacks, and killings on the Beacon Valley site. There's a social housing development. And in 2008, while I was with the CPF, we were looking at the issue of safety and bringing safety, and we looked at the availability of the land, because there were supposed to be 3 police stations built in Mitchell's Plain. It was Lentegeer, Tafelsig, and Rocklands. And when we had our discussions in 2008, we already identified there's not enough land in the Rocklands to build a police station that can be able to carry it. So it means we can no longer build just once. It must be 3 to 4 stories high, developments, mixed developments. And we cannot just build houses in Mitchell's Plain anymore. We need to look at local economic development. Your coastal line is underdeveloped. It's not even developed. It's underdeveloped. And that can be a catalyst for creating wealth within Mitchell's Plain, job opportunities to slash the unemployment rate. So people, we must forget about just housing in Mitchell's Plain. We need very urgently to stimulate the local economy in Mitchell's Plain. So that is what I'm just saying. And maybe on the 3 parcels of military land, maybe the DA has been doing the political intelligence very good, because it seems that they're copying your presentations in order to run an election campaign. Thank you.
Gentleman over here, thank you.
Morning again. You know, I'm a father, and my family still lives with me, my children. I have a grandchild as well. And I love being a granddad, so there's no question about that. When I sit with my family and we talk about the fact that we need another bedroom, because my son is planning to get married in January, and we need another bedroom. When we think about having my brother-in-law who's got cancer, and during the time when he's going to get his treatment, we said, come and stay by us. We need to find space. The concerns I have in my house are very similar to the concerns we have in my city. We have people or families, and we have neighbors coming in. And the thing is that when we're building a city, it's very, very much like building a house. You need to make sure that there's a kitchen. And if the kitchen is too small for the size of the family, then the wife doesn't get cross. And every wife knows that you and your mother-in-law in the same kitchen doesn't work. You know that you need to, if you're working from home, especially with the pandemic like it is, you need to know that you find space to set up your working area. You know that your house is incomplete if you don't have a little place where you can have your herb garden. So when you think about building your home, you need to think about all the things that make you happy. If I take a look at Mitchell's Plain, and forgive me, I can't speak about Gugulethu or Langa or Nyanga because I don't live there. But I can tell you about my neighborhood. And I can tell you that I have friends living in those neighborhoods, and I can tell you what I see. And whether we're looking at Beacon Valley or Tafelsig or Lost Valley, Lost City, or we're looking at Sevendelaan, the problem is that we don't have enough space for our teenage children to actually enjoy themselves inside the house. Also, when they built these houses, they built them so low so the air circulation is bad, so they want to go and sit outside. That means that we need in the outside enough space for them to sit safely and comfortably. What I'm getting at is this. When you're building a city, when you're building Mitchell's Plain is large. It's 84 square kilometers big. It's got 45 suburbs. So when we're building a Mitchell's Plain, and all we're thinking about is just bedrooms, there's no entertainment area, no area to work, no area to socialize, no area to meet, then we're not doing ourselves any favors when we demand that we only build residential areas. I'm agreeing completely with Michael is saying. It's long overdue that we think about, like in my own house, when I run out of space, I've got to think about going up. I've got to start thinking about going up. And if And if I think about the future that maybe my grandchildren won't be able to afford to buy their own house, then maybe I must think about going up double story or more. In Mitchell's Plain, we've gone past the point, I'm agreeing with Michael. We've gone past the point where we can think of single dwellings. We've got to start thinking about, like in New York City, or like in Observatory and Salt River, where they've gone up 12 stories, 7 stories. Yes, they say that means they'll put a lift. Obviously, I'm going to put the lift. Do you think I'm going to get the 80-year-old lady to walk up 12 stories? No, she doesn't take a lift. It does mean that it brings other work opportunities. There's a really nasty person who wrote history books and ideas and ways to be able to develop cities. He's called Machiavelli. Actually, he wasn't nasty, he was very clever. He looked at things, and Machiavelli looked at how we develop cities and gave instruction to princes and kings. And one of the things that he spoke about, you can see very clearly being applied in the city of Cape Town. One of his rules was that the poor people must be kept in one space, and the quality of the living standards as they travel to work must improve, so that the place where they end up is a nicer place to where they come from. That means that as they get better in their life, they leave, leaving behind a weak area and moving up. What we need to do is build wealth where we are. What we need to do is think about building our house, including our entertainment, our gardens, our recreation, our life. We need to know where we'd put our fire department,
I'm sorry,
everything
I'm going to
else.
have to ask you to
Thank you
wrap it
so
up.
much. Thank you so much. To the point.
The gentleman at the back, Kamo.
Hi, ik praat Afrikaans hoor. Oké, luister, het probleem wat ons het, komt van 1992. Toen ons gronde, waar die Kalderfees, die resolvement van die Kalderfees, wat die gronde gegaan het naar die different departementen, public works in die departementen, waar ons gronde weggevat het. Maar al die gronde is die weggevat. Rondom ons, tussen ons, Mitchell's Plain, Kailicha, Guguletu, wherever. Die gronde wat die mense sit met die 99 leases, die leases het verval. Die gronde lê wykend. Ek moes my besigheid gevat het, Buffalo City toe, in East London. Wat ek nou besigheid doen. Toe is terug Kaap toe, toe die mense gesê, luister, het jou business gevat uit die Kaap uit. En dis vir expansion. Mense het die COVID gebleem, because why, daar is die jobs en so nie. Ek het 50 jobs gekry in die Western Cape, op die bote. Daar is dit ons moet gaan, en ons moet gaan kyk waar het is. So ek wil weet, hoe kan die organisasie, die mense van Mitchell's Plain, Guguletu, Kailicha, assist met die gronde wat lê met die leases, wat geëxpired is, wat nie aan government of aan provincial government behoort nie.
Thank you for that. So, just for our scribe, Claudia, did you get that? Oh, great. Oh, but for those who didn't, the question just in English, the last part was, he wants to understand how can DAG support people
To get access to land lying vacant.
Oh no, he wants to use the mic, sorry.
Oh, just take it like that. It's not going to work. There we go.
Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that everybody understands. So the question was, how can DAG support people in Mitchell's Plain and similar areas where there are parcels of land where the lease, the 99-year lease has lapsed, and that land is now underutilized or not utilized? How can DAG support communities in identifying and developing an agenda around that land? Have I got your question? Okay.
Okay, shall we take another round before we come back to the question? 3 more hands. The gentleman at the back. gentleman at the... Okay, so we'll do the gentleman on this side, and then the gentleman in the middle, and then the lady will be our last speaker for this round.
Yeah, Michael has spoke about many things, but let me just compliment DAG. DAG is assisting Mura with our work in terms of because the main focus would be, and Crystal, ek het buitekant gaan staan toe sê ek die presentation praat net saam met ons. We must agree that we have a major housing crisis. But with DAG's assistance, and especially Ryan at Mura, we've also identified we need to take along this unemployment, so we must create jobs. There is safety, security issues in Mitchell's Plain, so we would support any housing, but it must be high density, it must be multi-purpose so that we can take care of jobs, business hubs, all the other things along. So we as Mura is grateful to DAG for their assistance, and especially Ryan and now Sharon. So we get support, so we comfortable. So we depend on Ryan, our submission, and DAG's submission. So I think the partnership works, and on our executive attendance register, it was Ryan's name and Sharon's name there. So thank you. Over to my brother Biani.
Thanks. My good people, first I must thank you, Crystal, for this presentation. I hope you'll be able to share this presentation to Kylie Chappi's building team, please, because there's a whole lot of information. There's a lot that I don't know. And I can assure you I'm not the only one in my organization that is unaware of all of this, right? I can imagine about my fellow community members, especially those who find themselves in a leadership role in the neighboring communities, especially in these new settlements, such as COVID. Yes. Recently, a few weeks ago, we had some kind of a survey, Kylie Chappi's building team, with DAG. Akona was coordinating the whole thing, and with University of Stellenbosch also. Yes. Yes. So we did some good work there in terms of trying to work with local leadership. Yes. But there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done there, because there's no NGO that is really assisting the communities there, and there's a whole lot of challenges. And these people, if they go there, doors are closed, they don't know where to go. And the city of Cape Town, if you talk about them, they will say, where is that place? We don't know those people. Yes. So now I can relate from what you have just presented now, from your presentation, that okay, that is why the city of Cape Town says we don't know those people. Where are they? Where is that place called COVID? You know, politicians, sometimes they call us land occupiers, they call us shack farmers, but we are land occupiers. We occupy the land because we have nowhere to stay because of COVID. The pandemic, we lost jobs. We couldn't pay rent and all that. So there's a whole lot of factors that drove us away from where we used to stay. But anyway, we are surviving. As I've said at the beginning, please make sure that we strengthen this relationship, right? The work that we have already started in COVID, we must not stop it now, right? Akona is aware, we have worked, we have already started. I hope we will see your face there. I know you like places like that.
The lady over there at the back, come on.
Was it not this one?
Okay, let's do this one, and then the lady at the back will be the last speaker for this session.
Don't know, is it good afternoon already or good morning? Yes, I'm very grateful to the DAG team. Crystal, we come a long way. Greta, Ryan, and Icona, which I miss very dearly. Kundai, I want to say thank you to you guys. But first of all, I just spoke to Chuma when we got here a few minutes ago. And I have a great struggle, Crystal, with our informal settlements, especially Heinz Park. And my strive in my heart is this, is that our people's dignity and value and morals has been diminished by our politicians. We have been shoved into one corner. Our children have to walk 500 meters to a toilet facility. The danger of being raped. And that is my concern. It brings tears to my eyes because we all one, we're all human. And I don't think it's fair that I should live in a mansion where my people is living in that condition. I don't think it's fair. Is it the right to ask of me to vote for you? I don't think so. Don't think so. Because what did you give to me? I remember a few years ago, we had a big fight. You were in that meeting when I fought with them, when Arthur said he's going to resign the housing committee, because I said, why are you there? You're the voice of the people. You should speak and not be satisfied with crumbs. They give us a one-bedroom building, and we must be satisfied with that. I said, no. So the community that is here today, don't let us just hear what Crystal has said. Let us go out there and make a change. Say no. Don't just say thank you. Because we have the right to take our action and our places back. It's not God right that people should live like that. So for everybody here today, I hope that this meeting will be fruitful in your hearts. Let us not be happy for what we have. We have a community out there. We have another child out there who has to bear the blood. And unreported, the rape cases is there. Why? Because we say thank you for such developments as Heinz Park. I thank you.
Thanks. At the back, Kamo, the last speaker at the back, the lady. The stripes.
Good morning, everybody. If I understood properly, then I believe I heard that special amount of land was made available by the government. I would like to know how many of that land is available for the people of Mitchell's Plain, and how it's going to be utilized. Will there be public participation in there? Because a lot of projects, especially housing projects, happened here in Mitchell's Plain. And I'm sorry to say, I'm just that type of person. I'm frank, and I must say as it is. It's a buddy-buddy thing. Because just let me make an example. I've got 2 kids that don't have houses. The one is 15 years on a waiting list, the one is 20 years on a waiting list. And when my daughter got married to her husband, his baby sister had weekends sleeping over at my house. She's got a house already. My daughter hasn't got a house yet. Because it's who you know and what you know. Because when I ask her the question, how did you get your house? No, my father-in-law knows someone in council. Now, I want to know today, can you people assure us that when this land comes available, that the people of Mitchell's Plain, Khayelitsha, wherever the land is available, that the people of that areas will be part of that planning of how it's going to be distributed. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your participation. I think because of time, I've noted the 2 questions specifically. But because of time, I'm going to propose that we move on to our community partners, who's going to give us some insight from the experiences of those communities. And then in the last session, which is going to be a facilitated session, which Ryan is going to facilitate, I think we can discuss those questions also in addition to some of the other issues that we'll discuss then. So for now, I'm going to ask Norman Jantjies from Mura to come to the front and then to please keep it within 10 minutes. Norman is going to speak a little bit about the experiences of Mitchell's Plain and Mura.
Still morning, Mrs. Anyway, I just want to, on behalf of Mura and the people of Mitchell's Plain, welcome you all here. And we're very honored and privileged to be hosting DAG's dialogue session in Mitchell's Plain today. So thanks for that. DAG is, they said, DAG is a very old organization, 1986. So, and they've got a good track record. I've worked with DAG when I was an activist in Heideveld and in Mitchell's Plain. I remember a guy by the name of Basil Davidson. So I've worked with him. So they are deeply rooted in our communities. And they've always been the voice of the voiceless when it comes to housing issues. So yeah, we as Mura, we're privileged to have a partner in Mura, in DAG. I'm also happy to hear that Kathy is the CEO of, is it right, CEO of DAG? She's also an activist. She's been around. When she was still a teenager, she was an activist in Bonteheuwel. So I worked a little bit with her when I was in Bonteheuwel as well, and Ashley Creel and Joseph Aranas and those people. So I know she comes from a very good pedigree. Also, even Crystal, I think I met Crystal when she was a little bit younger, and we were working on the Freedom Park project. That's where I met her, and she was very active in making sure that informal settlement becomes a formal housing project. So here's another indication of the pedigree that we have in this partnership with DAG. In terms of this issue of land and housing, we know it's very dear to people. Number one, in Mitchell's Plain, when you talk to people, safety is number one. Number two is housing, right? And sometimes it changes. But you cannot talk to Mitchell's Plain's people without raising those 2 issues. Because we, like what's his name said, Sean, Mitchell's Plain's people is here for quite a while. And so they've got children, who's got children. Where must they live? So what they do, they maybe end up in the backyard, or they're going to rent by somebody else, or they must leave Mitchell's Plain. So it's a serious problem, and I think the city has neglected us and the province when it comes to housing. If they can only deliver 4,000 houses for the city or for the province, I'm not too sure what was it for the province? For the city. And if you look at the backlog, it's clear that it's never going to be reached in our lifetime, not even in the lifetime of our children. So something needs to be done. And sometimes when there's elections, we divorce the issues that we face with from the elections. Yet there's a link. Because the people that you put in power, they make the decisions around housing. So we need to, when we go to the elections on Monday, we need to recognize those things. Think about it. Think about safety. Who cares about safety? Who cares about housing and land? They come around here, and when there's a death, or then you see some of them around, and they maybe give some flowers to the family, but that's not what we want. We want a more serious investment in Mitchell's Plain and in our people, and I come again to safety, housing. Then the issue of public participation. One of the ladies mentioned the thing of public participation. We don't know, we just see there's an auction sign. And we can't afford that. And by the time you see the auction sign, the auctioners are weer klaar. So there's no meaningful community participation when it comes to the distribution and what's the right word? The disposal of land, right? So now we saw recently there was an ad in the paper, Mitchell's Plain. They want to dispose of 120 pockets of land, right? So, and they give you a month to comment. But by the time you comment, how do you know that they're even going to take you serious? Right? So, and like somebody said, sometimes who you know, because the people who buys those lands, they're normally connected to people. And in many cases, it's the local politician that knows, kyk jy, hulle gaan die grond verkoop, dis die prys wat jy moet insit, and then you will get it. So sometimes it's maybe to the church people that you know, sometimes it's to somebody, maybe an education center that you know, and those are the people. So it is buying political favor from those folk so that they can vote for them. So it's about time that we wake up as a community and take charge. Because many of these councillors that serve us, they don't even live in the ward that they're serving. So there's no connection between us and our needs and them. So it's about time that we as community activists take a firm stand in what we want. And we are too many people to allow a few people to control us. So if we need to, after Monday, you vote for whoever you want. But after Monday, we should start getting together and decide for ourselves, what do we want? What do we want with the pieces of land? How do we make sure there's a connection between the land and its disposal with the needs of the community? Right? How is it possible that after so many years, Mitchell's Plain being, is it 50 years now? 40 odd years? How come we don't have an athletics track? Yet we've got 100 schools, more than 100 schools in Mitchell's Plain. So where must our kids go for the athletics? To Kailicha or to Vygieskraal? Is that right? How come we still have the one, the business hive in Mitchell's Plain? Yet we've got hundreds or thousands of small business people that's just looking for a site to make business, because we've got the skills and expertise in Mitchell's Plain amongst our people. So I trust when we have engagement after this, we're going to look at the issue of land and housing, the issue of land and economic development, the issue of land and power. Because land, if you have land, it gives you power to make a loan at the bank. But if you don't have a fixed asset, you won't get a loan easily at the bank. So we need to understand that the issue of land and local government, the issue of land and safety, because many of our vacant spaces is the places where our people are being robbed and raped. So we cannot isolate the issue of land from safety. And of course, Michael and people mentioned the need for police stations. But also community centers. Where must our kids go in the afternoon after school? The houses are small. So where can they go? I mean, I grew up in Heideveld, and in the afternoon, I could go to the community center and play games. I learned to play table tennis, to play badminton, and I became quite good at it. And it actually boosted my self-esteem. So what must our kids do in the afternoon? What must the young people do at night? The community centers are used for other things, churches and other stuff. Yet it must be for the people. There must be a place for the women's group, for the educare group. There must be a place for the teenagers after school. There must be a place for the youngsters at night. So I just want to, they're showing me some stuff, yeah? So I just want to once again just reiterate our thanks to DAG for having this thing here. Also, thanks for you for sacrificing your, I know Michael is a candidate and there might be one or two other candidates. So, but thanks for sacrificing your time. And thanks for all the safety structures that's here, sub-forums, neighborhood watches. And I hope that whatever we learned today, we will also take it back to our communities. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Norman. I think two very important questions there. How do we decide for ourselves? How do we come together and decide what it is that we want? And the second thing, how do we ensure that the land, how it's used and managed, it is aligned to the needs of the community? I'm going to give over to our last speaker now, Lungiswa from the Khayelitsha Housing Forum. There she is at the back. I'm going to be quite strict with time. Chuma will show you when you have about 3 minutes left. Lungiswa is going to speak about the experiences of her community in Khayelitsha and the Mandela Park. Yeah, informal settlements. So, do you want to come to the front?
Good morning, everybody. I hope it's still morning, right? Okay. Oh, afternoon. All right. Everything that has been said thus far here is imperative that we actually take it and we analyze the situations that are happening in our communities. For example, in Khayelitsha, I'll talk particularly about my ward because we've got at least 5 new settlements around Mandela Park, informal settlements that have mushroomed rather since 2020 COVID. And the issue that we're having there is everything that has to do with land. Is this okay? Everything that has to do with land has become politicized. It's a comrade of a comrade issue, and it's a buddy of a buddy issue, to a point where even the sewage that is happening in terms of them clearing that out is a comrade of a comrade issue. And then when you take that and you put it into what is happening now with the local government elections that are going to take place, the issue that we have as individuals, and I'm going to say all of us, although I don't live in Mitchell's Plain, but it's my analysis. And if I'm wrong, well, I'm right anyway. Is that when it comes to elections, as the previous speaker says, we always take away the needs that we've always been crying about. And we forget that that individual that is there is not God, because we give them too much power. And then once, let's say 4 years have elapsed, and then they come back and they make the same promises about the houses that they're going to give us, about the land that's going to be freed. We merely clap and we give them again another 5 years of power. Now, with that, for example, we've got Khayelitsha CBD right now where the land has been serviced. All it needed was structures. We've got over 1,000 shacks right now that are on that pocket of land that has been sitting there. I think I was 18 when they started talking about that project. I'm now very close to 40, and now there's shacks there. And the issue with that is, again, we have to know who owns the land and how it came about that they owe the land. And the problems that we're having there is we understand that the city owns the land, but the city has a lease that they did with KCT. KCT, who didn't consult the people in terms of what they wanted, although the agreement was you guys can be able to build on the land or develop the land as long as it is involving the people of the community and in terms of what it is they want, obviously trying to boost the black economy or the Khayelitsha economy at that point in time. So the problem then you find is you sit there as a community member and you literally watch these people fighting their egos because I'm now DA and I'm with the city, or I'm now ANC and I am in sub-council 10, so therefore DA you can't say anything. These people forget that they are actually talking about real people, real issues, which is us. And we also, when it comes to public participation, go, man, it's just going to take too much time for me to go sit there. Forgetting that those decisions that are taken there, that signature, says A, B, C, D is going to happen, which is going to affect you for the rest of your life. So again, the public participation, even if it means you're going to have to go to the offices every fortnight or every week, you have to go there because it's not, remember at this age where we are right now, judging from the faces, it's not about us anymore. It's about our kids. It's about our, our kids. And then when it comes to the housing, yes, it's true. We can't just build single stories anymore because there's not enough land. So we have been in talks, especially within Khayelitsha Human Settlement, which is now where we've got the push and pull, where we said, look, how about we start building up? Because now we've got an issue where we've got a huge backlog. We've got people that are coming into Khayelitsha for many, many reasons. Some are right, some are wrong. Point is they are there. And they are going nowhere. They're going to stay there. So how are we going to sort the housing issue out? So the decision that was taken amongst us, and when I say us, it's literally 5 people. And this is generally the consensus of Khayelitsha. Millions of people, 5 people make a decision. And then based on that, Enda said, whose friend you are, who you know, who you don't know, you'll either win or you'll lose. And then it will take another 5 years for them to say, now we've got to put a signature on, and then another 5 years to say, but now that signature was actually incorrect, that guy died, let's put on another signature. So all of these things force us, as the public speaker said, Oguti, after the elections, we understand that, okay, fine, they're going to be in their comrades. We all know the usuals are going to win. It's okay. How do we take the power back as the people? How do we hold them accountable? And when I say hold them accountable, it doesn't work anymore to go to them and say, but we voted for you. When we say take the power back, it's we understand we voted for you, Mara, this is how we want it. And we don't have to consult them. Remember, our job is to agitate. Our job is to change. Our job is to enforce things to happen in our favor. And the more we'll actually get that into our heads, the more we capacitate ourselves in that manner. That is when even the government officials themselves, they'll see what it is that they're supposed to do because they'll understand their job. Right now, we have given them too much power to a point that they don't understand why they're there, either than to earn a salary. So these are the issues that we've now in our societies have to face because it's an attitude thing, ne? It's a character adjustment. It's not a moral issue anymore because remember, as much as we can hold them accountable, we say they don't do 1, 2, 3. We also have a role to play, which we ourselves don't. So it's a two-way street in order for us to reach to where it is that we are going as a community, as people who stay at a particular place. So I think I want us throughout this conversation to actually observe what our shortfalls or shortcomings as the people who want to receive change versus what it is that they are giving us in order for us to make this relationship work so that we can get what it is that we desire to get out of this whole thing, which is whether it's land, whether it's housing, whether it's service delivery. Thank you.
Thank you, Lungiswa. I think also two very important points there. One is, do we hand our power over to those that we elect and then wait to see what happens? And how do we take our power back? And then the second thing is, how can we get more involved and what can we do to actually effect change? So with that said, thank you first of all to those, to Norman and Lungiswa for those contributions. I think very informative, and it also grounds the work that Crystal presented and the conversations we've been having in the actual experiences of those of us sitting in the room and those communities that we come from. So we're going to move on to the last session for today. That's going to be facilitated by Ryan Fester. Most of you already know him. And it's going to be an interactive session. And I'm going to hand over to Ryan to do that. Ryan?
So good afternoon, everyone. Like Rita said, most of you, I hope this thing's going to stay. Most of you already know me from the work that I do with Mura. So today, to end of this session, I also just wanted to say Wilhelmina spoke earlier about powerful women in DAG, and then she mentioned my name. So just to, I think Michael might have been a bit worried or confused, but I am a man. Yeah, powerful men. Yeah, at the end of this session, we're just going to do a facilitated discussion because I think at the end of the day, it's not just about talk shops and workshops and seminars and being on the news, but it's about how do we take these discussions forward, right? And it's always about action. Now, this whole event really comes from these political fights we're seeing on the news about who's going to release their land, who's going to release the military sites, and who's going to release the golf courses owned by the city of Cape Town. But the question is, these politicians are fighting about who's releasing the land and whether the DA is willing to release their golf courses or whether the national government is willing to release their military bases. But we know that at the end of the day, will they continue those conversations after the elections? Because there's no point in us voting for someone and then after the elections, they've forgotten about what we voted them in for, right? And so it's very important that we hold our politicians to account, but we've also been saying that a lot. We need to hold them accountable. And I think in Mitchell's Plain, I know a lot of people hold their politicians to account, but still nothing happens, right? The change we want to see, and all of us want to see a particular change, whether it's in the housing landscape or whether it's in the way our neighborhood functions. You know, we're not just looking for houses, but we're looking for local economic development. We're looking for sports and recreation. But what is the changes we would like to see? And this is an interactive session like Yurida has spoken about. And so we're going to talk about the 100 days after the elections. Because those first 100 days are very important, not just for the politician in power, but also for us as a community. Because are they going to continue talking about how they will release the golf courses or the military land the 100 days after the elections, or they're going to forget about it and it's going to be business as usual? So the question to the audience, which is all of you guys sitting here, is what should your councillor or your municipality's priority, and in our case, the city of Cape Town's, what should their priorities be in relation to land and housing in the first 100 days after the elections? So that's the first question. And then we're going to ask, how we as a community can influence those processes, right? If we're talking about land release, if land release is what we expect to happen in the first 100 days after elections, then what role is the community going to play in that? Norman, I think, reflected on how the City of Cape Town has put together a participatory process around disposing of different vacant land parcels in Mitchell's Plain. But we know that some hotel in town runs an auction almost on a regular basis, disposing or auctioning of land in Mitchell's Plain, and the community knows nothing about it, right? So how are we as a community going to change those type of processes? And I'm using Mitchell's Plain as an example because this is where I work on a regular basis, but there's many other communities represented here, and you can sort of talk to those type of issues in your community, but what are some of the changes you think needs to happen going forward from this event? Because we're not just going to leave this event here, right? We're not just going to, the content we're discussing, we can't just leave it here. It needs to be taken forward. There needs to be some form of action. Otherwise, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We woke up early this morning to be here, and nothing else has changed. So I think Farouk's hand is up at the back as speaker number one. I think we'll take it again in threes, and then we'll sort of run another round. So I think we have Farouk, and then is there two more other people? We have Jennifer, and then Michael. So Farouk first, and then Jennifer and Michael. Thanks, guys.
Hi, good day, good afternoon. From the indigenous people, the Khoisan people, we have got inheritance to the land. And what we say is to the authorities from the Kokakwa side, we should put a moratorium on the land disposable from the governments, local government, provincial and national government. Because we, the people, must decide and determine our own development. So if the City of Cape Town has put out a public participation process, how can we as communities raise a petition against these processes to stop it, or to even put an interdict against these processes that government is busy with? Thank you.
Thanks, Farouk. Jennifer?
Chief. We in Easter River, as everybody know, we don't have a land crisis because most of the land is already developed. But the problem that we're sitting with, we have so many houses standing empty for almost 2 years. And we have so many backyarders still renting in the backyards of other people, paying other people. People signed title deeds already. People got phone calls, but they are still standing there. So we in Easter River, we are sick and tired of empty promises. Last week, our people were burning tires and stuff. We have the conifers issue that we also brought to DAG's attention because we wanted assistance. We've been speaking to councillors who are shifting the blame. So what we're saying now, we try to avoid that, marching and stuff like that. But the people are sick and tired and they feel like invading. So if after this 1st of November elections, nothing happened, our people are going to go over invading. Because when we spoke to government, when we even spoke to the councillors, the recent councillor who just left office now, referred us to the previous councillor. She said, remember, she's 5 years in office. She said it's not her problem. We need to speak to the previous councillor. Now, recently, she said, no, it's COVID. She's not speaking to anyone. And then she said, we need to wait for the new incoming councillor. So, people, this 100 days, I'm even scared to say what's going to happen. Our people already started. If you can see on the news, this past week and the week prior, there were burnings and stuff, especially in that same Forest Drive area. We have houses in Forest Drive. We have houses in Malibu. We have houses in Conifers. We have houses in Electric City. Easterwood don't have a problem. We have houses. These houses are being vandalized already. But the government don't want to give our backyarders houses. At first, they said it was earmarked for N2 Gateway. When we went to the people there are children staying in some of the houses, 16 years old. Yeah. But our people, 80 years, 90 years, are still in backyards. So this 100 days, we are going to hold the councillors in office responsible. They wanted, now with the Conifers March, all the parties were there because they wanted to get our votes. They were all there because they heard we say nobody's moving in. It was houses earmarked for backyarders. Then all of a sudden the government listened to the ratepayers who said, not in my backyard. The ratepayers refused for those people to move in there. So they changed just the roof. And then they said only Flush people can move in. Now people, I believe, Kamu and Mali, we've been sending you the papers. Our people are really sick and tired. Our people are going to take action and it won't be nice. So we are asking DAG once more, help us. Otherwise, I don't know.
Thanks, Jennifer. Michael's the last one for this round.
Thank you. When I was with the union sector that time, millions of years ago. So as a branch organizer, I was an organizer, but I was the servant of the workers, which means there's an executive committee. They hold me accountable for service delivery to those workers. So that must be our idea of holding a council accountable within the ward, sub-councils. So you can see, we have been asking in Mura for a moratorium of the land because the DA council has been the majority. They ignored us because they've got a 60% majority. So they have become arrogant. And that is what we must say to all councillors. You are the servants of the people, which means in every ward, councillors must identify those pockets of land which has become a problem. Vagrancy, where people are antisocial behavior, and the youngsters, hulle sit kring en hulle gebruik hulle dagga. So we need to deal with those unsafe spaces. And then we move forward, where council on the ward committees mustn't be the chairperson. Those that are represented on the ward committee, they must elect a chairperson coming from the community so that the councillor can be held accountable directly by the community. So that must be the mindset changes. And when it comes to open spaces and land development issues, then instead of a moratorium maybe, because we cannot go and claim, what do you call that, where they walk, the place where they walk, when you go to Rondebosch.
The common.
Rondebosch Common.
The Rondebosch Common.
Die man het die land kom steel. It's been put in a terrace, and now we must come and we must beg for that land. We must say, when it comes to appropriation of land, that must be, and it can be utilized for development, mixed development. So, for instance, in Mitchell's Plain, those ward councillors, we must tell them to an audit of those lands. Because they cannot maintain the parks currently. The city cannot maintain the parks. So why don't we rationalize those parks? Those pockets of land that cannot be used for housing must be used for local economic development, because I know the parcel of land that they want to use on the corner of Highlands in Eisleben, in Colorado Park, there's water bodies. So they must significantly scale down that proposed housing development. So why can't it be used to make it into a regional park, but then you put up structures that will cater for the local communities in having your own, like you have in what is this, Pinelands and all of those, your flea markets. So you've got local economic development, you've got little housing opportunities, but people come and enjoy in the park. So we need to have these ideas, and we must tell these councils and council officials, they are not our bosses, because that is the arrogance that they're displaying currently within council. And we don't need a Southern Housing Tribunal, a Northern Housing Tribunal. Our sub-council boundaries and our sub-council administrative officers must become your housing tribunals, in which there must be a chairperson coming from the community and not the professionals. They can guide us, yes, the architects, the land developers, and all of those, and not a property council which the city has or the province when they kicked out the provincial development council. So we need to have a change, and a radical change, on how to deal with these issues. So clearly I'm saying it is, we need to agitate it. Also see a cook sister party. We must agitate as a community, as community organizations, and we must really be the voice of the people. Ons kan nie kom sê, councillor, oh, daar's 'n pocket of land, hoe kan ons? No, we must say we must take ownership, and the community must be able to decide how that open spaces must be utilized. So there must be a radical shift of thinking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So just to summarize the three, so there was called for a moratorium on the sale of land, and if you don't know what that means, it's basically that if the government should sell any of their land parcels, that the community is aware that it's being sold, because what the current trend is now, that land is being sold, but the community is not aware of it. Right? And then the other calls are for changing the approach and the tactics, like Jennifer spoke about. You know, we can't just do business as usual. We can't just talk about holding councillors accountable. That's how we do that. Right? Michael said, you want to go speak to the councillors. It's not going to work anymore. You know, there needs to be a different approach. And then they talk about land audits and thinking more than just land or land for housing, but thinking about land for economic use, for business, for industry, for schools, education, and those kind of things. So we're going to move on to the next three hands. Also, before we go on, I just want to say that we want to try and keep inputs, because we only have a limited time, to about 2 to 3 minutes max. So we have Arthur Pillay over there. Then is it any two more other hands? You don't have to jump up all at once. Okay, so we have Arthur. Maybe Arthur can go for now, and then if there's two other hands, we'll take them from there. Thanks, Arthur.
Thank you. I want to go the crystal way. I'm not the technician, or not going to answer a technical question. I'm more practical. You know, I've been to many workshops, summits, and meetings, and I'm almost appalled when I hear all this talking about the youth, but nobody mentions the seniors. I think seniors have been put out to pasture. If we look at Mitchell's Plain 40 years ago, they are the pioneers that actually started here. They started with a 3-bedroom house in the main bedroom, and they've been pushed to the back door neighbor, Kraaifontein, senior citizen accommodation, out of sight, out of mind. And there they die. We talk about there's no more space to build. So we talk about high-density houses. Somebody mentioned lifts. But you know, our seniors cannot do it anymore. They're even scared of lifts. So all I want DAG and both the government to start thinking about our seniors as well. Because there's nobody in Parliament that talks on behalf of seniors. I always say there's two things that's going to happen to a human. sure he's going to die, and sure he's going to become a senior. Thank you.
Thanks, Arthur. Then we have the lady in front. Are you talking about a particular Sean or?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm from East River Backyarders. So my mother raised some of the concerns in our community, which is very pressing issues. The most pressing issue that we have is those houses that have been built are being assigned to people outside of East River, which we think is very unfair because the people of East River have been on the waiting list. They've been waiting for houses. Every time they contact the people to ask, but how far am I? They're being told soon, 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 soon. So they're getting ready to move into the houses. Then they get notified, but no, we're going to allocate those houses that were meant for you. We're going to allocate it to people coming from another community. And then in that other community, those people that are being assigned to the East River community, they already have houses assigned that side. So there are people getting houses who are already having houses. There are people coming from another province into this province and getting a house. But in the other province, they already received a house from government. So this is very unfair for us because our people have been struggling. They're living in Wendy houses. The Wendy houses are falling apart. The roofs are leaking. They don't have proper structures, but the government doesn't see this as a problem because it's in a backyard. So it's not in sight for anybody to see. The backyarders have been struggling, but because they are not seen as an informal structure or informal settlement, they are ignored. So this is a problem that we have, and this is why we've been seeking assistance from DAG for the East River backyarders, because a lot of our backyarders are being ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the gentleman at the back.
Good day. My name is Ivan, Taufstuk with Neighborhood Watch. I just want to ask one question, and if they can help me, I will appreciate it. We are fighting here for land, houses, and everything. But yet, in Mitchell's Plain, I've been staying in Mitchell's Plain for 27 years now. And as a Neighborhood Watch member, I've been walking around, doing our patrols. Now, what happens here, when the older people that were staying in the house, they died, they passed on. Now the children got the houses now. What happened now? They now staying in the houses. What happened now? The friends of them came in the houses. And if you can, if you want to come in just plain, and you walk in the roads, you will see how those places look vandalized. They don't care. Because it's not their house anymore, because the people that stays in that house is not there anymore. Now I want to know, can DAG do something about that? Because from Tafelsig up to Westridge, Portlands, you name it, all those houses where there's no people that can do something about it, it's like when the window's out, cardboard is fine. They don't go and buy a new window. When you get in the house, no taps, they don't worry. So can DAG do something about that for us? If they can do it, I will appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks for those few questions, and yes, we will engage with you. I'm sure there's some form of work or support we can provide for you in that regard. There's a lady right at the back. You might have to take a run.
Travel to school. I would save more money on transport and travel.
I just want to know how DAG can assist. Say, for instance, I die, okay? Obviously, my children becomes my heirs, okay? The problem that I have, the house has already been registered into my name, right? I have a will. I know my children is my heirs. I want to know what DAG can do about this, because in the day and age that we live now, and with COVID coming in, people losing their jobs, I think it's pathetic to pay up to 50, 60,000 rand just to have that same house you've been living in for years, to get it transferred on your children's name. I want to know what they can do about that. The other thing that I also want to say is, these civic centers that we have here in Mitchell's Plain, why must it stand there? Now, no activities is happening there. Why can't our school children make use of that facilities during the week, maybe under the watch of neighborhood watch, walking bus people, whoever, just to have our children off the streets? And that can also be a prevention of crime and our children not falling into drugs and gangsterism and anything. There's another thing that I also want to say is, Norman mentioned about when land is being made available and whatever, and this all works in council or in government, they let them people. Norman, the most important thing you left out, man, you should have mentioned it goes to the mafia first, man, to the drug lords. It goes there. How many of them are owners of these lands? Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, there's some good points that came out there, and I think the main thing is that it's more than just about releasing big parcels of land, but there's issues with housing, in the current housing that we have as well, whether it's around taps, toilets, electricity. And then the question, ma'am, that you asked around the transfer fees, my colleague just helped me understand that there's an organization called the Transaction Support Center that provides support around that. So we can definitely link you up and pass those details on to you. I think we don't have a lot of time. In fact, we probably just have about 3 to 2 minutes, or 2 to 3 minutes, sorry, left of the session. So I'm going to take Deirdre. Is there any last burning questions that, or input people want to raise? Is Deirdre at the back? Is the gentleman with the green sweater? And then anybody else? Mrs. Jones? Or Mrs. Linda Jones, sorry. Is there anybody else besides those three that want to? This is the last round we're going to take before we wrap up today. Okay, going once, going twice. Deirdre, over to you. Okay, the last one at the back. Okay, so there's 4 people left to talk today. Deirdre?
Okay, it just, with me was part of the sanitation for backyard dwellers for city stock only. I feel that was also a way of keeping our people in the backyard, providing them with water and sanitation. Yet they've been building off. 5 years ago, they did that project here in Tafelsig and Eastridge, because it didn't run over to Picken Valley. There was no funds for it. How many people received those sanitation? And out of those people, they're still living there. How many of those, when the houses burned down, where there was no support, the councillors will ask the community to assist in providing the certain utensils that is needed? Yet, they had here Morgan Village, they had all those stuff, housing coming up. Did they ever consider those people that was on the, and I'm speaking now of city stock, that received sanitation? Did they consider that people to give them a house? No. 18-year-olds got a house. And then if on the emergency housing, if there's a plea for emergency housing, what do? They take you away from your family here in Mitchell's Plain. The lady was speaking about Easter River. They took a family with an emergency need and go put the family in Easter River. So much inconvenience was done to that family because they were poor, number one. Their children attended the schools in Mitchell's Plain, which was a whole new thing for them. Think of the cost that incurred because of the arrangement. And they don't think. The last thing is that the city, and I want to tell you guys, we all spoke about voting rights and who to vote for. But the city dictates to us as a community. They got with this projects that they roll out for neighborhood watchers who work voluntary, day in and day out. They come up with a project, but the ward councillor decides with urban renewal who can work on that project. So which means we as the community must just accept what the ward council or the chairperson of a sub-council decides for us. So people, let us, this is just an encouragement. Let us think where we make our cross. Let us really think who we want as a councillor. And let us stand together and take hands, and no longer we will say, enough is enough. No longer will we allow councillors and sub-council managers to decide for our people what and where we must go to and how we must receive a sort of a stipend. Thank you.
Thanks, Deidre. So we got the gentleman with the green golf t-shirt.
Hi, I'm Vernon from Tafelsig, Hyde Park Neighborhood Watch. I would like to start and say thanks to DAG. I don't know you guys, I've met you today, and I'm sorry I haven't been involved with you before. However, one of the things that I want to mention today is that it's a pity this meeting wasn't held 100 days ago. Because then many of our people would have been informed regarding the decision that they need to make on Monday. And it is true, many of them will still be making the cross for a sweater and a food parcel. But I want to end with this and say that where we find ourselves today as the community of Mitchell's Plain is because of the leadership that we have in Mitchell's Plain, is because of the community who they have elected and voted for. That is why we find ourselves here today. So if we had this meeting 100 days ago, the community would have been informed to make the cross at the right place for the right reason. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Jones in front, and then we have one more right at the back.
I'm here again. I believe they said, what is our expectation for the next 100 days? I wrote down, we should demand public meetings from our ward councillors. We should demand regular report backs of what we have asked for. We should see that our community is run and not just a few people benefits, but that the whole community benefits. And the other thing that we should demand from that, we have houses, some of us have our own houses, our paid-up properties. We must pay huge amounts for our plans to be walked through the city in order to extend our buildings. We need that to be changed. They cannot supply our children with housing. So they can lessen that money, that charges, so that we can put up structures for our kids that lives in our backyards. They don't need to live like people that does not belong to the main house. We can extend that. And so that should be what we should demand. The other thing, we talk about the next 100 days. I don't know, if my counselor don't meet with me, he has a problem. And I don't want to go to his office. I want him to come to my area, to my community, show your face to the people so that they can know you. We know they sit in their offices. We must make an appointment. They're there for 2 days, and then they say 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, we will be leaving. No, you must come and speak to the people on the ground and listen what their needs is. And so, yes, people be encouraged today. We can talk and we can go on talking, but we need to take a stand and say, we're done. We're done with politics. We are taking back our lives. We have the right. And like the government, they cannot decide for us. We can take them to our constitutional court because we have the right to determine our own life. So let us determine where we want to be and put your foothold into the door. May you be blessed.
Awesome. Okay, so we have the last speaker for the day, and then we're going to close the session.
Okay, there's just one thing that I missed out on. I also represent a very big I think one of the biggest organizations in Mitchell's Plain, and that is the Mitchell's Plain United Hawkers Forum in Town Centre. Now, there's a lot of small business people in Town Centre. I don't call us hawkers, I call us business people, because that is what we are. The thing is this, you see, you've been given the space by the city to walk, right, to trade at 80 Rand a bay, and those who've got kiosks, like pay 350 Rand a month. But from there, you can't grow. The reason why, because when you walk into a bank and you say that you are a hawker, you are being declined. I want to know what DAG can do for the people, for the business people, the small business people of Mitchell's Plain regarding getting finance. Years back, there was a bank in Town Centre called the People's Bank that helped the people. Why did they take that away from us? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a doctor now. But yeah, thank you everybody for those inputs. I think there's a lot of work that DAG can do, especially around land and housing, but there's also partners of DAG and friends of DAG in the community and across the city. And it's important that we as DAG not just educate and build the capacity, but we also link those who are here today to those right partners. And so I know I've met with that organization who works with the hawkers before, and so I'll sit with them and see what possible ways forward we can have around that, you know. And they can only do so much, and then sometimes another organization has to take the baton because they specialize in those aspects. Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, no, there's so many concerns around small businesses and the laws and the policies that stop their growth, and so we need to also tackle that. And I think just to summarize the session, you know, like one of the things that I'm hearing is Mrs. Jones spoke about the building fees that are so ridiculously expensive, because sometimes we just look to government to build houses, but we as a community build more houses than government, you know. But if it's so expensive that we can't, that we are forced to look to government, I think that's a problem, you know, that needs to be addressed. So to summarize some of the key points, I think the whole aspect around leadership, that, you know, perhaps we find ourselves in this situation because of the leaders we've elected, you know, and thinking about who we elect on Monday or who we make that cross to, but not only that, how do we hold them accountable after they elected into power, right? Are we just going to have normal meetings with them? Is it going to be business as usual? Because the word accountability is such a vague word when we throw it around. You know, at the end of every meeting, you almost hear, we need to hold them accountable. You know, but what does that mean practically? And I think most people are sick and tired of holding councillors accountable, you know, because they're still not seeing the change that they desire. Yeah, and they lie to you and all of that things, right? And then there's also this whole idea of emergency housing, you know, and where is the emergency houses? It's not in your community, it's not in your neighborhood. Sometimes it's far away on the outskirts of the city, you know, and how do we address those particular issues? Again, ward councillors, it's very weird to hear someone say that we want ward meetings or meetings in our ward, because councillors are mandated to hold those meetings, you know. And if they're not doing that, then they are violating the conditions of their office, you know. And so how do we take them to task on that? They don't notify, there's no proper communication, no proper stakeholder engagement. And in fact, in one community, I know the councillor decided to start his own civic organization to work with them instead of the other community. Yeah, and then also this whole idea of how do we build good neighborhoods. You know we have a housing crisis, but we also have young people that need entertainment, that need sports and recreation, that need colleges and universities, and how do we bring that into the conversation? And then this whole thing about housing tribunals as a possible way forward, you know, Michael spoke about it, but it's a good thing, I think, you know, to raise your housing concerns and housing issues. So, and there's many other things around housing transfers and public meetings from ward councillors and the whole idea of small businesses and how we can can cause them to grow, because all things are linked, right? There's a link between the land situation and the crime and the gangsterism. There's a link between those things and small business growth, and how do we bring these things into the conversation going forward? So I'm going to close this session off now, and then I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Curida, to take us forward. But thank you all so much for your inputs and your questions and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Ryan's made my job significantly easier because he's done really well in summarizing what this session is about. And I was thinking that I'd attempt to try and summarize everything or some of key points from what we spoke about today, but I think it would be impossible. There's just too many issues, and there's clearly it almost feels like we just started a conversation, and we need to continue having this conversation. I think maybe one of the things that I just want to say is that what's clear today is that it is a process. It's not just about one step in the process. And we need to think about where we intersect and how we get involved in those different processes. And then how do we take our power back? What do we do? How do we work together with one another? And Ryan's already mentioned that some of you are involved in projects that he works on, Akona, Chuma. There are different ways in which we can support those of you here in the room to work together to try and address some of these issues. So reach out to us when you have these meetings on different platforms with my colleagues. Mention them, and let's see how we can actually collaborate to address these issues. Yeah, and then I think I'm going to end it off there. What I do want to do at this point is to thank everybody for coming from across the city. We do not take it lightly that you left what you were doing, what you were busy with at home, and you came here to discuss with us these important issues. We recognize the work that you do in the community and your contributions, and we appreciate you coming here today to work with us and discuss all of these different things. So thank you for your participation, everybody. And then I also just want to thank Wilhelmina, who came and spent the day with us as our board member. We appreciate your participation. Similarly, Bonke, our vice chair of the board. Bonke, do you maybe just want to wave at everybody? Thank you. So Wilhelmina is the chairperson and Bonke is the vice chair. Thank you very much for supporting us in this and also supporting our communities and coming out today and spending the time with us. And then I want to thank our speakers from the communities, Norman, now I'm getting it confused. Norman Jantjies, the chairperson of Mura, thank you very much for your contributions, very much valued. Similarly, Lungiswa, who came and spoke of her community's experiences. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming out and sharing your views. Crystal, thank you for stepping up and sharing DAG's perspective and doing the work. I know it was a lot of time spent. Thank you very much for stepping up. And then finally, and I must thank you, Ryan, for your facilitation. And then finally, all of the DAG staff, our tech team, everybody, thank you so much for your contributions and for helping us to get this work done. We're going to end it here. Thank you, everybody. Let's keep in mind the COVID protocols, keep a safe distance. I would like everybody to just give us a moment before we all rush out the door. We've got some lunch for you. So maybe let's just give it a moment until our live stream is off, and then we'll, in an orderly manner, make our way out, grab some lunch, and go home. Please, let's not congregate outside. We do have to fill out some forms, so let's try to do that in a manner that still respects the COVID protocols. It's always. Sure. Thank you. With that said, can we give everybody a hand of applause and then we close the session? So what we usually do is to provide transport for those of you having traveled from afar and having spent money. Zinzi is sitting at a table, not provide transport, provide reimbursement for it. So Zinzi is sitting at the back with a table. There's a form you need to fill out. So if you do need reimbursements, please just go to Zinzi, and it's a stipend. It's like a stipend. It won't be for your full, but I think most of you already know that. So please go to Zinzi at the back, sign the forms, and get what you need. We've got lunch for everyone.